And after we finish one lesson, I will upload the recorded video up to our e-learning website. So if you want to review the contents, you can go there and just watch it again. Okay, let's talk about today. Today we focus on the basics of research. So the structure of this research methodology follows with Kumar's book. And he provided a very simple approach for us to understand the essence of research. He divided it into 8 different steps. So through the test of time, we found out that it's very easy for the beginner to understand. Although we start from the mechanic way, but eventually you will be able to master all the important steps of the research methodology. Why do you want to take this approach? Just like you learned when you were a kid, you must have the experience of learning riding bicycle, right? So your dad or your mom will just hold the back of the bicycle and told you every small step that you need to care for. So you did the first time, you rode on the bicycle and tried to learn to pedal on it and try to move forward. You would tumble a few times and eventually you will be fine. Once you go on your ride for bicycling, you feel, wow, fantastic. And gradually you would forget all the details of how to ride a bicycle, right? Just like learning research methodology. Although now, as a beginner, we learn the different steps of the research methodology. But gradually, when you learn to ride on the bicycle, you will be able to master all the spirit of this issue. So don't worry, although we try to dissect this whole process of research methodology into 8 different steps. But as a matter of fact, you can treat it just like riding a bicycle. That would be very easy for you to imagine what kind of scenario you would have. Just like me, I have learned research methodology many decades, many years. And of course now I could just imagine or think of any tiny steps I should focus on. Because it's kind of just like riding a bicycle. So if you can learn ride a bicycle, then you can learn how to do a research. Is that right? Very simple, very simple. They are just about the same. Starting with a very small step, you learn each of the steps and focus on what you need to focus on, what you need to learn. And gradually you will be fine. You'll be fine, okay? So let's use 1 week of time to talk about the basic of research today. And this is a very simple goal for us. First, give you some idea about research. There are some fundamental philosophy out there. There are some understanding we need to know about research. What are the different paradigms? What is the difference between qualitative and quantitative research? And when you are dealing with the research, what kind of mindset you need to equip yourself? These are the basics of research. And after that, I will introduce an 8-step research process described by Kumar, and I will just faithfully deliver that knowledge to you. So just get you acquainted with the very beginning of learning methodology. Okay, let's talk about research. When we talk about research, basically it is a way of examining your practice. If you are a practitioner in any field, for example, if you are a manager in a clinic, it would be very helpful if you know how many patients you examine for each day. If you are the owner of the restaurant, you would like to know how many guests come to your store, come to your cafeteria to enjoy the delight food. It's very important. And on what hours? So based on this analysis, the finding of your own research, then you will be able to allocate necessary resources to receive all the guests that you would encounter. It's very important, right? Focus another example. Wenzhou is facing a very great challenge for attract and recruit new students because of the fewer children nowadays, right? So how can we make ourselves known to the parents, known to the educational circle, and known to the students who want to become a college students? Maybe it's a very good important research for Wenzhou, right? So you can mention this. These are all the ways for you to find out something for contribution. So here are some of the very simple examples you can ask for yourself. For example, how many patients do I see every day, right? Just a few days ago on Sunday night, I have two dogs. One is Mia, the other one is Lily. Mia got an eye sick. It's a scratch on her eye. And the first time I looked at her, she looked back at me with a small eye and a bigger eye. I saw, wow, it was cute. Then I looked deeper. I found that is not cute at all because she stopped her eye to see. So I tried to call to the vet. And the vet did not respond to me at all. So I'm kind of, okay, maybe I can wait for until tomorrow, Monday. But my wife was nervous. So she gave me an assignment. Do some research. Instead of the vet we always visit, is there any possibility that there's a very strange vet that still open his door during the very night of Sunday? So okay, I say, okay, let me do some research. So basically, the purpose of my research is to identify, to search for a vet that is still open at 9 p.m. Sunday. Strangely enough, there is. There was just next door of my apartment, my house. That's very strange. It's just a few blocks away. So I took my little dog over there, and it charged a lot, of course, because during the night. So I treat it as just an emergency visit, so that will be fine. So imagine this. Actually, we are doing research all the time. You have a problem. You search for data. You analyze the data, and then you have make some decisions. So I brought my Mia to the vet and have the doctor visit, and now she looks fine. So now her eyes are equally wide. So that's good. I solved my problem, right? So imagine this. Do you have this sort of daily routine questions pop out that can bother you or just challenge your mindset? Yes, indeed. Just like this one. If you are a doctor, you will be very curious about how many patients you can see every day, right? Because you want to hire, you instantly, there are a lot of consequences out of this. For one, how many nurses you need to hire, right? The other consideration, how large of the office space you need to receive the patients. If the one you have right now too small, or it's a good time for you to enlarge, enhance your business, expand your business. There are a lot of considerations. Or, what is the best strategy to promote sale of a particular product? So to sell a product, there are many different ways, right? For example, if you are owner of the McDonald's branch, the franchise store, and McDonald's is promoting a rice burger for some time. Rice burger, it will be very difficult to combine rice and hamburger. Is that right? Because hamburger is supposed to be a junky food, as trashy as possible. That will make it more delicious for the human being to consume, right? But now suddenly, McDonald's emphasized the health-oriented rice burger. So you can use garbage food, and in the meantime, you can keep health. That would be strange, right? So there must be some promotion effort out there. If you have such a very important new product want to sell to the public, you need to do some research. And maybe one of my clients' most common presenting problems. To some extent, do you think that you are our clients? Yes, indeed, to some extent. Although you are students, but you come here with some certain expectation. When you enroll in Wenzhou, enroll and register in this program, what do you expect? There must be some expectation, right? You have your concern. And when you enroll, now this is the third year for you to stay here in Wenzhou. Have you ever encountered any problems? Maybe you have. What are the common presenting problems you have? This sort of knowledge will be very important for the administration. Is that right? For example, the cafeteria, the student cafeteria is way too, I believe, way too small and not enough to equip the appetite of all the students here, right? Whenever you go down to the cafeteria, you find that the food there is meager at most, mediocre most of the time. Not enticing. So every time if I go there, if I really go there, I just take some food for the purpose of getting some nutrients. That's it. I'm not looking for some fancy food because there is none of that. So this is my presenting problems for every lunch. Do you have similar problems? Maybe you have, right? I have been here for this is my 16th year in Wenzhou. The worst problem I ever encountered is how to get to where to get my lunch every time. Because every lunch time I always wonder, well, how kind of lunch I need to have? So I have a lot. Now I always have a lot of discussion with YMC, Zhao Yuanming, and we talk a lot, but fewer time we would take actions. Most of the time we just sit idly to say, what do we need to eat? And I'm waiting for students to pass by. I got to buy some lunch, okay, and then please help us out. So suddenly it becomes a very important issue. Right, so food can be an issue. This is my problem. So what is your problem? You have not only food. This is a very basic need. You have a higher purpose of receiving education here. I'll show you. Yes, of course. As a school professor, it would be very interesting for me to know how can I answer the needs of you to solve your problems. So we could do some research. And the next one, how many people are coming to my agency? Agency refers to institutions, right? So a household agency or the Bureau of Investigation and so on. There are many different kind of agencies out there. But basically, you have to expect, you have to anticipate how many customers are there. That relates to a lot of issues. For example, for one, infrastructure. If I have only one building, and this building can house at most 300 people, but because of the time, because of the business expansion, then suddenly it becomes a pattern. Every day we have to receive 600 people. So do you think that is a very important issue for us to consider seriously about the expansion of our office building? Of course, right? And on the other side, normally you will take in 300 customers per day, but now strange enough, because of COVID-19, instead of 300 people, now every day it comes only 30. The influx of consumption suddenly reduced only 1/10. What would you do? You need to cut cost, right? What kind of cost you can think of? So there are a lot of issues you want to think about. So how can you make your final decision? Maybe you need to do some research. For one, if the influx of consumption has been reduced to only 1/10, then you have to look at what is the money flow there. how much money we could make for well, per month, and how much money we need to spend to hire a human being, hire hands to help us out, and how many people we can, and what kind of facility, how large of office space we need to have, and so on. There are a lot of considerations out there, but you cannot just imagine we can do this, we can do that. Most of the sound decisions are based on research, the findings of the research. So that's why we always do research. Is that right? So don't undermine your own ability. Really. Don't say, I'm a college student, I'm not a graduate student, so I don't need to do research. On the contrary, it is a privilege for students in the department to learn methodology, really. It's indeed a privilege, because you start to independently think about the issue you can solve. Imagine this, after you graduate, even you don't, I do not encourage you to just go to graduate school study. No, it's fancy stuff. It's a long, painstaking process for delay your unemployment sometimes, for some people. But I do not encourage you. But there is an imminent practical purpose for you to learn research methodology. That is, you can identify the problem. That is, you are smarter than the average college graduate. You can collect valid data. That is, you can analyze the data and provide a sound suggestion or sound decision to solve your problem. That would be much better, right? So you have to hold on the opportunity to learn research methodology. And of course, the last one, what causes X or what are the effects of Y? It's an issue of Y-X correlation. What is that? For example, do you believe that if you study more, then you will get higher grade? Well, to some extent, yes. But if you study too much, you may not get higher grade. You may not, because you were tired. You will feel tired, right? And you will feel exhausted. And maybe you will just be interested in yourself. Oh, what is the purpose of studying so hard? Oh, I will quit. Maybe, right? There are a lot of considerations, the so-called interference variables out there. So that can jeopardize your possibility of getting higher score, right? Of course. I had a classmate in college. The first year, when he was in freshman year, he was number one in all the classes. We have 700 students. He is number one. And on the sophomore, in his sophomore year, he suddenly thought about one important issue. Who am I? Is that important to get number one all the time? No, I don't want to become this kind of people. I want to be as ordinary as possible. So he intentionally wasted himself up, just did nothing. And unfortunately, he still get number two. So you can see that some people are really smarter than us. And this is the one example. Much, much smarter. That's amazing. And his name is Hair 6. Mao Liu. Remember that name? Okay, let me say that one. He is very cute. And his name is Mao Liu. Hair 6. No, of course, that is his nickname. Okay, he is Mr. Wang, Professor Wang. He is now the dean of the research institute in Yangming Dazhi. So he is very, very smart, intriguing, right? So maybe one day I will feel puzzled. Why you are so smart? Would you allow me to open your brain and let me do some research, dig out and pull with the needle and to see your reaction? That maybe I feel intrigued right now. So basically, let's look at the very small slide. All of this practical research can help you to solve some of your problems. Is that right? So imagine this. Do you have problems? Do you have issues? Do you have some obstacles that you try to get through? Of course you have, right? Instead of just go to a temple to bye, worship the gods, maybe you can just step on the ground to do some real research. Fortune teller can tell you a lot, but evidence is based on scientific research may help you to have some rational decision. So these are the basic research. Okay. And so that's what we say now. So what kind of application for research? Basically you can see from many different perspectives. We can see this from the perspective of service provider. Service provider, or the administrator, manager, and or planner, or the consumer, or the professional. There are so many different walks of people here that they want to, of course you can see the large table, a large chart in your book. Which page? Could you tell us? Which page? Yeah.
Page 4.
Page 5. Yeah, so you can turn to page 5. You can show you look. So there's a larger chart out there, so you can see. Instead of looking at this small one, yeah, the book.
Page
12. Okay, 12. So basically, the handbook is for you to follow up all the PPT and all the assignments, all the portfolio, and the readings are for you to read, indeed, right? And most of the PPT's major contents come from the book. So if you want to have a further understanding of what I'm talking about, you may just go there and explore. Okay, let's see this one. Service provider or administrator, or consumer or professional. Let's look at the consumer side, as most of the time we are consumers, right? So you may want to find answers for this kind of questions. Guys, am I as a consumer getting value for my money? I spent this and I expect to have that. Am I really receiving the stuff I want to have, I plan to have? And how good are the service providers? We have telecommunication companies there in Taiwan, 3 bigger ones and 2 smaller ones, right? They all claim that they provide the best services with their money worth. But do they really deliver what they have promised to the customers? Maybe we can do some research. And what are the long-term effects of the products I'm using? Where is the evidence? Organic food is good, or gene, so you don't want to consume some corn that is energetically revised by gene technology. So there are a lot of concerns out there, right? So you use one thing, and some old folks nowadays even believe that cell phone is dangerous because there is a radiation of some sort. One of the representatives, maybe my wife, she always think that the cell phone is dangerous because if you close to it, your brain will explode up there. So it's kind of interesting to look at. So every time she uses a cell phone, it's just like this, and talk with a microphone, with a speaker on, and neighborhood over here. Very unique practice, right? So people have different concerns. It's quite normal. How about professional? I will regard myself as a professional, right? I'm a teacher. I'm a professional in my field. So there are some of the concerns out there. For example, which is the most effective intervention for a particular problem? Well, intervention means something you get into to treat with the situation. Intervention, get into, right? For example, I feel after 10 weeks of education of the teaching for this course, I found that most of the students are still confused about the very basic ways to do literature review. That worries me, because how to conduct a literature review is very important, right? So that kind of issue bothers me. So I try, this particular problem bothers me a lot. So for me, I would like to find a suitable way, efficient in the so-called efficient intervention to make you really know that. So maybe I will offer an extra course in the evening, and I taught this in Chinese for the benefits of a non-speaker, non-native speaker here. Maybe, right? Okay, of course I cannot provide anything in Germany. That is too hard for me. But anyway, I maybe trying to do something that can help you out to really know this, right? And maybe what is the relationship between X and Y, and how valid is a particular theory in the present conditions. So there are a lot of considerations out there for professional. Maybe our jargon, maybe we'll use a lot of fancy terminologies out there to scale you up. But basically, for this one, that is, what is the relationship between X and Y? It's a correlation between two variables. That's right, right? So correlation. What is the correlation of my teaching method with your academic performance in this class? So we can see X and Y. Is that right? I put into my teaching method onto your learning process. Then the result where your academic performance in the class, right? So I would like to know the relations. What kind of intervention I give you and you have a better performance? Maybe I can just do some research. And let's move to the administrators or manager or planner. Maybe we can use what are the needs of the community. When we talk about community, it's a group of people out there, right? So we, US3, we have a very unique student population here. So what kind of problems you have, especially when you move on to the third year of your study here in the Department of International Affairs? Well, I can foresee someone. For example, you will become busier than the previous 2 years, right? And you will start to think about your own identity. I mean, identity is not who you are, no, it's what do you want to be, sort of. You will start to think about this seriously. And the GP issue will start to bother you because you have observed the previous 2 years of the students that some of them performed well, so they graduated, some of them not really, so they have to stay here to receive the tortures from the professors, on and on, on and on, on and on. It seems there's an endless game. Some of you may feel bothered about that, right? But some other students may feel encouraged, enlightenment. I'm ready for this. I want to take this challenge. So look at this. You have different needs. You have different needs. And as a professor and administrator here in the department, I may be interested in finding what kind of needs I can give to you. Is that right? What type of services, products are needed by the community and so on. So there are a lot of questions. And let's move to the service providers. Let's look at this one. How many people are using the service or the product? Have you ever used Windows Phone? Windows Phone by Microsoft? Well, it sounds like a fancy stuff, right? But now, actually, when Microsoft has discontinued this product now, the last product that it was produced in 2016, Windows Phone. Then after that, there was no new product related to Windows Phone. So this fancy stuff received very, very little popularity in the market. So they have to discontinue this product. So why do they want to decide to discontinue this product? There must be some sort of research out there. right? Okay, and how effective is the service or product and so on. So imagine this, when we do research, the findings of the research can help us out in many, many different ways. Okay? Okay, any question? Okay, when you are sitting in the classroom, just don't dawdle away, don't sleep. Some of you have already put your heads onto the table. Come on, raise your heads. Yeah, you. 生病的话就可以 tell me. Anyone here has a problem or trouble following my English presentation? Anyone here? Clear enough? Okay, it's very important. I'm doing a survey, right? So this is a presenting problem. I found some students are kind of dawdling away and wandering away and not really here. So you may want to become if you have any problem or question in the class, please just raise your hand, let me know. Okay? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Any question? So if not, we'll move on to this. Let's say, we know that research can be used in many different ways to solve our many different kind of problems. So let's look at the definitions of our research first. Basically, this is a very simple understanding about research. So when you say you are undertaking a research, you say you are now undertaking a research. Now, so the process, we can look at the three different perspectives. The process is being undertaken within a framework of a set of philosophies. It's kind of a huge word over there, right? So when we say that we are doing a research, and then all the process is being undertaken within a framework of set of philosophy. What does that mean? Have you ever heard about it? Oh, this is a qualitative research. Oh, this is a quantitative research, right? When we say quantitative research, broadly defined, it is a framework of set of philosophy. Have you ever heard about that? Oh, this is a field research, right? Oh, this is a case study. Oh, this is ethnography. So basically, when we say we are conducting research, we always need to have a framework of philosophy as our foundation to look at that. To look at the issues we want to study. We want to study. No exception. We cannot just go out there and claim, hey, I want to do research. You have to tell me what kind of philosophy, what kind of paradigm you are following. Are you using a qualitative approach or quantitative approach? Are you conducting a content analysis or are you doing a case study? You have to explain that because every different approach of these research methods or set of framework of philosophies would emphasize on different important issues. For example, in qualitative research, the target for collecting data is always a very, very small size. It's not huge. So in qualitative research, the researchers for qualitative research never claim that the findings of our research can be generalized onto another scenario. Never claim that and never try. Why? Because this is the philosophy. We are doing this. We are focusing this. We try to describe, fully describe what happened in this scenario. That's it. So this is our philosophy. But when you claim that you are conducting a quantitative research, there's a huge population. For example, we try to identify what is the percentage of Wenzhou students focusing on, let's say, canine or stray dog protection. Okay, stray dogs out there, right? So you would like to find out the percentage of the students who care about the welfare of the stray dogs and how they care about their welfare, right? So you will conduct a survey. Imagine this, there are 9,000 students here in Wenzhou. So the population is 9,000. Then you will not go there and collect answers from the 9,000 student population. Instead, you select a smaller sample. The sample size may be just 100 or 200 or 300 because that is manageable, because that is cost efficient. Every time you conduct your research, you need to spend money. And how much money have? Students have everything but money. That is quite normal, right? So you do not have too much money. So you can spend your time, you can stay up late, but you do not have money. So you have to think about all this issue. But just as I say, we select a smaller sample from the greater population. But in the end, we try to use the finding of the smaller sample to estimate what happened to the greater population, right? So in quantitative research, we generalize. We always try to generalize the findings into the population. Is that true, right? So we have a different philosophy. So this is one. And the second one is, the process uses a lot of procedures, methods, and techniques that have been tested for their validity and reliability. We talk about procedures, methods, and techniques. It is something like, let me give you one example. If you have a very adorable boyfriend, and you try to invite him to your home to meet your parents. Now, this kind of invitation will bring your parents some problems. That is, what kind of food, what kind of dinner that we need to offer to this cute little boy. Is that right? So dinner, there must be a lunch. There must be a very, very huge and delicious dinner out there prepared for this tiny, cute boy. Is that right? So they need to prepare. Imagine this. The process of prepare the dinner is somewhat related to research methodology. That is, through the very beginning to the end, there are many, many different steps, different processes to think over, right? It's research methodology. However, inside each of the different steps, it refers to methods, techniques. For example, if your mother says, okay, maybe we need to prepare a 虾仁炒蛋, a scrambled egg with shrimp. Then here comes the problem. This dish is a part of the research methodology. But you cannot just say, okay, I want to have this. You need to have the skills to prepare that. You need to have the knowledge to prepare for that, right? So you need to learn how to prepare the scrambled egg with shrimp. So this is talking about methods and techniques. So when you are conducting research, there are a lot of different techniques you need to have. Most of them you would learn by yourself. Don't count on Daniel that this tiny Daniel will provide your knowledge for your research. No, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. Because everyone's research topic is somewhat different. Is that right? So overall, eventually you have to learn by yourself. So basically, when we say that we are conducting research, you need to acquire a lot of knowledge for the different techniques and different methods, for example, data collection, data analysis, and so on. And also, when we say that we are conducting research, this is supposed to be very important. I say supposed to be very important. It means ideally, we try to be unbiased and objective, right? And if you look at this, if it is designed designed to unbiased and objective. This is very important. Why? Because when we want to study, we want to have some findings that can be used for other people, right? So ideally, it should be value-free. Value-free. But in practice, no studies are value-free. Every study has some value laden under it. Why? Because we are human beings. We are human beings. When we, for example, when we interpret the findings of when you try to explain the findings of the research, we will use our ideology to give its meaning, right? So everything we say comes out from our value system. So you will instantly find out when we claim that we want to have a pure, unbiased, and objective research, sometimes it's very difficult. But at least we can try to design as such. Design. Okay? So at least we need to start with the purpose of our study to provide an unbiased and objective result. At least we can try that. So, but in the end, it will be somewhat difficult. Okay. So let's say, now then we know that research takes time. And research requires a lot of efforts. So basically we can see from these 5 characteristics for a research. A research, basically it is controlled. There are some manipulation there. There are some control, there are some comparison out there. So it must be put into a controlled setting. You control something of it. For example, if you dispatch questionnaire to your respondents, right? The process is controlled. You cannot just allow them to say, okay, you can bring home and when you watch TV, enjoy coffee, you fill it out and bring that back to me. No, it's always in some sort of controlled fashion. The only difference is the degree of control. And the second one is rigorous. It's not easy. It takes time. Sometimes the process is very painstaking. You have to do it. And all the process you have to be very, very careful. And the validity issue is there, you have to concern all the time. And the third one is systematic, which means that all the process are designed in advance, and you just follow the way. For example, if you are collecting data, if I want to measure your height, now we have 41 students here. Then everyone comes on the platform. If imagine this, there's a height scale here, right? So everyone comes here to measure your height. I need to have an SOP, standard operation procedure, to put you through the process of measurement. Everyone needs to follow the same process, no exception. I will not allow you, some of you can take off your toe, some of you can take off your shoes. No, you have to do about the same thing. Why? Because I need to have a systematic measurement, right? And the fourth one is empirical. Empirical refers to that we do research for empirical purpose, for practical reasons. And we have to collect evidences. We are not talking about philosophy. We do not ask questions like, what is the relationship between star and my life? That is not empirical at all, right? Because this is some sort of fortune teller stuff. And we do not talk about we do not talk about yesterday I dreamed of a dog, and that dog barked at me. What is the meaning for that? We do not talk, because that cannot be tested. When we say that tested, is a very important key component for research. Why? We need to collect evidence, right? And you say that you had a dream last night. First, I have no proof. You have no proof that you really had this dream. And you cannot offer any proof for that. Is that right? So when we say research, it must be empirical. Must be something there for you to collect. You cannot just say because I say so. No. Must be empirical. And number 5 is critical. Critical means that to the point. To the point, it refers to that your research must to the point to some segment of the society, some sections of the people. They need to have. For example, now, just as I say, Wenzhou is facing the threat of fewer students coming into the campus in the college level institution, right? So it seems that the scenario, the situation is very important, and sometimes it could be very dangerous for the survival of the higher education institution. So the critical research for this issue, you have to the point. The principal of Wenzhou will very like to have any professor to conduct how to attract more students to come into Wenzhou, right? Okay, instead of this, some other research may not be so critical, although it seems related to this issue. For example, if one professor said, okay, maybe I can do the fashion preference of the fewer students nowadays in high school. Is that related to Wenzhou's imminent threat of the fewer students entering this campus? Of course not, right? So it may be related, but it's not critical. So believe in this. You have to make sure your research is critical to some people. It's critical to some institution, which means that you have to focus on one important word. That is, you have to ask yourself always, what is the contribution of your research? There must be some sort of contribution out there. Otherwise, what do you want to do? So be careful for this. You have to emphasize on the contribution of your research. Must be someone out there, it can become the beneficiary of your research. So these are the 5 characteristics of the research. Any question? Okay, if not, let's take a 10-minute break and come back here. And if you feel kind of dizzy, you can go out and use the bathroom, wash your face, and refresh yourself, and come back again. Okay, talk to you later. Okay, allow me to add in one that the characteristic for research has to be included in valid and verifiable. Let me explain this to you. When we talk about valid, it means whether the things you have collected, the data you have collected, is capable of answering your question. It seems kind of obscure in its meaning, right? Let me give you a very simple example, then you would understand what is the meaning of becoming valid or the non-validity. Validity refers to, let's say, if I want to measure your height, then the valid instrument for measurement is height scale, right? 身高计, is that right? So if I use height scale to collect data for your height, then the process is valid. The tool is valid. The result of the data collection is valid. The data I have collected represent your height, so it is valid. So the validity issue is very important. On the other case, it's not valid at all. If I'm going to measure your height, then I use a weight scale. to measure your height. You can imagine this. The tool is not valid, right? We call it invalid research instrument. Not valid instrument, invalid, right? So I use an invalid research instrument to collect your heights. Of course, I would have a lot of data, but the collected data cannot represent your heights, right? On the other side, in other meaning, it says, I want to identify the heights of my students. So this is my research questions. But the data I collected cannot be used to answer the heights. So you can see this research instrument, weight scale, is not valid for measuring height. The process of my collection is not valid. The result of my collected data is not valid. So eventually, my analysis based on this set of invalid data will be invalid, right? So validity issue is very important in research. You have to make sure every process of your research is valid. Or otherwise, you will get your results very, very ridiculous to readers and to your professors. So be careful for this. Validity is very important. The other one is verifiable. What does that mean? It means any third party can use your research, can rerun the process you research, and being able to identify the similar result you have produced. It's very important, verifiable, which means that you cannot just say, okay, I have a dream again, right? See, I have a dream. I say I had a dream yesterday, but it's not verifiable. Is that right? Because I cannot verify whether you have a dream or not. So these are the general characteristics of the research. Among them, every part is very important. So you have to be careful about this. Okay, let's move on to identify the several types of research here. When we say that different types of research can be viewed from 3 different viewpoints. The first one is, if we talk about how we are going to apply the research, then this is an application issue. Then we can look at what is the purpose of our research, objectives. Then we can look at what would be the process for us to inquire. So inquiry mode is another consideration. So let's look at objectives first. This one, what is the purpose? If you want to describe something, then you have a descriptive research. If you want to explain why this causes X, why this X can cause the result of Y, then you are using exploratory, try to explain. I'm sorry, this is the number 4. If you want to identify, try to explore what is inside it. Let me give you an example. In Meilong is a very Hakka village out there, Hakka township up there. And inside the Hakka township, there's a very small village. Inside that village resides only 20 families. And 18 of the 20 families are foreign brides family. Is that very interesting, right? The demographic profile of that small village consists of only 20 families. And however, 18 of the 20 families, their wives come from Vietnam or Thailand. That would be very, very unique for any field researchers try to identify, right? So they want to explore. So exploratory research refers to, if you want to explore, try to identify what happened there, then this is our exploratory research. Sometimes you want to identify the relationship between 2 variables. The relationship between 2 variables, for example, in Taiwan, most of the students graduate from college in southern part of the city or rural areas. They would, after they graduate, they will move into Taipei, New Taipei City, or to a big city of Kaohsiung, right? And this kind of city attraction apparently is there. So what kind? Some students will go to Kaohsiung, some students will go to Taipei. So what will be the relationship between their decision and the city they want to go to? The students should be different, and the place they choose to go to may be different, right? So this kind of correlation research, you want to identify what is the relationship between this group of students and their decision to move into a different big city. There must be something of that. And the first one, if you try to explain, try to find why this is the case, so you are going to use the explanatory research. So in terms of starting from the viewpoint of objectives, we can have 4. The first one is to describe, descriptive research, explore or correlation or explanatory. And the other one, we look at from the viewpoint of application. How are you going to use your research? Basically, there are 2 kinds. One is the pure research. Pure research, the other one is applied research. Okay, by the name of the 2 different terms, you will know. Basically, you could understand what are the differences between these 2, right? Pure research has no imminent use at all. For example, you are a physics scientist. You are conducting research about the identification of different atoms in one metal. Inside that atom, how many neutrons, electronics are there? What is the interactions of the electronics in one atom? Well, there's no imminent use. But the findings of those pure research may be very profound. It can change our understanding about the universe, right? So this is pure research. Other than this, most of the research are applied research with some purpose, with some practical issues out there, with some practical uses out there. In social science and the study we are going to conduct in the future, most of the studies are applied research. Applied research, the purpose of application maybe sometimes is very huge, sometimes is very small, but it is used for practical reason. It is conducted for practical reason, okay? And the other one, let's go to inquiry mode. How are you going to inquire the data? Basically, there are 2 general categories. One is quantitative research. The other one is qualitative research. These 2 approaches are quite different in their paradigms. Paradigms means a set of framework of philosophy. They have different jargons, they have different terms, they have different emphasis, they have different focuses, and they have different sets of techniques and methods you need to learn. For example, for quantitative research, you need to learn how to run statistical package. You need to have some basic knowledge of statistical analysis. So statistics, it seems a very big word for some students here. You need to have some idea about this. And for qualitative research, you need to learn some qualitative research software. How to code, how to edit, how to code, how to analyze qualitative data. There are some packages out there for us to use when we are dealing with qualitative research. In the department, we offered at least 2 packages for you. One is, you can see from here. One is QSRs, we call NVivo. NVivo is a package that you can use for qualitative data analysis. And the other one is QD minor, QDA minor, QDA minor. Where are you? This one. Okay, maybe I can. Let's. For quantitative research, you need to learn SPSS. This one is, and you will be able to learn SPSS on the second semester of the next semester. You will be able to be there to learn something for this. And let's talk about SPSS a little bit. Some students will claim, for one thing, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math, so I will shy myself from the use of SPSS. Well, I would say, unfortunate for you. Why? Because you totally misunderstood the meaning of using SPSS. SPSS is a software package. Its full name is Statistical Package for Social Science. Okay? So this is Statistical Package for Social Science is a software. Let's think about the simile for using Word program. Can you use Word program? Yes, you type documents all the time, right? You edit, you use Word to compile all the different documents. But as a user, do we need to know how to design the codes for Word? How to compile the Word program so the other users can use? Do you need to know any code to write the Word program? Not at all, right? The only thing you need to know, just like this. The only thing you need to know is to use it. Let's see, Word. Okay, let's see how to use Word. So simple. This program is coded by the software engineer to present to you. So say, okay, now you can use Word, right? So you get into here, and this is the interface. This is the interface, so clear. But here, as a user, the only thing you need to know how to use Word is just click the button, and that will be just about it, right? You just use it. But if you want to edit to make it more beautiful in its look, then you have to learn, oh, what is the purpose of this, purpose of this, purpose of this, and then you use it. Is that right? So you can use Word, right? But you do not need to design the Word program, because this program, this package has been designed by a software engineer. They have the knowledge to create the codes. To make all the tiny changes, you will never notice. The inside codes, you never notice. This is very similar to the use of SPSS. SPSS, just like this one, is very simple. Let's take a look at their interface. It takes some time to load. Okay. Let's see this one. Do you see that is very similar to Excel? Is that right? Very similar. And there's a panel here, just different variables, very similar. Although this is Chinese, but still, look here, it's very similar. So the only thing you need to know is I have a lot of ways to analyze. So I click here, this is the so-called one mean test, t-test, one-way analysis, and so on. That's it. So the only thing you need to know is to click it. Not fancy at all. You do not need to know how to design this SPSS program, right? So basically, just like using an oven or a toaster or 大同电锅, you just click on it. You know it will produce some sort of result. That's it. And what do you need to learn? You need to learn how to understand, how to explain the meaning of the printout, the output. That's it. Very simple. how to understand this meaning. That's it. You do not need to calculate how to calculate the so-called variance, how to calculate standard deviation, how to identify t-test score, and so on. You don't need to do that because the package will do that for you. But the only thing you need to know, two things. One, which patterns will bring what kind of results. Second, once you have the results, how to explain that. That's it. You do not need to learn to do the calculation. It's not required. It's not required. So don't be afraid of using SPSS. It's very simple, very easy, okay? So that's for one thing, just to let you know now, and you should not be afraid for using this. Okay, let's back to here. The next one, inquiry. Let's focus on the inquiry mode. We talk about there are two kinds of inquiry mode, right? One is quantitative research. The other one is qualitative research. Basically, quantitative research is more structured. When we say structured, that means that in every different steps of the research, we have quite a good deal of literature that can help us to structure the process. When we design our questionnaire, we dispatch, we know the questions is already there. So it's structured. Basically, it's kind of following the process through different process, then you will have the result structured. But for qualitative research, it's more or less unstructured. It means that we have a research purpose. We have a set of research questions. A lot of times because we, as a human beings, although we are researchers, but still we are part of the research. We become the research instrument to collect data. For example, if I interview you, then I myself is the tool for data collection, right? So to some extent, I myself is a research instrument. So my interactions with my interviewee will be meaningful. So I need to describe it. But before I interview you, I have no idea what kind of interactions that we will have, right? So in this regard, I cannot structure the process of interview completely in advance. So that's why we say unstructured, okay? On the contrary, in quantitative research, we are more comfortable for all the process because we can structure the process. You dispatch, you don't have to interact too much with the human being. I give you a questionnaire, you give it back. So our interactions does not have too significant impact on how you answer it, right? So this is the difference. So since we have two different kinds of inquiry mode, they are very different in a way. But how are we going to choose? First one, you have to ask one important question. Which one is better? Which approach is better than the other one? Well, the correct answer is, well, that depends. No one is better, okay? You cannot say, okay, I use SPSS, so that seems very sophisticated. So this is much better. No, that is too superficial. No, that is not the case. Not the case at all, okay? So when you choose one, the choice depends on, first one, the aim of your inquiry. What do you want to do? What do you hope to achieve? If you want to explore, then qualitative research may be better. If you want to confirm or quantification for something, then quantitative research is better. Okay? And how are you going to use your findings? You want to formulate your policy, or you want to just understand what happened to the process. If you focus on process understanding, then it would be much better for you to use qualitative research, because qualitative research can help you to describe what happened there, can help you to explore what is the inside story of there, right? You are not using that as a policy recommendation. But if you try to use it as a policy formulation, for example, then you need to provide solid evidences. For example, if I want to advise the school to adopt some certain policy choice, then I have to give them a very solid evidence based on numbers, right? I would say, according to my research, 85% of students respond positive to the new option, 85%. And the old option, the old policy we had, only 30% of students show their preferences. So you see, I provide evidences and number. So quantitative research can be used for policy formulation. So there are many different ways, all depend on what is your purpose of inquiry and how you're going to use your findings. Okay? So far, any question? So now I give you 5 minutes to review all the differences between the types of research, how they can, and you can read some of the literature on the reading. Okay, starting now, 5 minutes. Let's talk about paradigms of research. Paradigm refers to a set of philosophical framework that are a norm, a standard, a set of standards, a set of norms that people in the same paradigm would follow. So in terms of research paradigm, the general category has two. One is in quantitative research. The other one is qualitative research. So qualitative research and quantitative research have different sets of paradigms. They have different terms, different emphasis, different values. So they are in different fields of research. So since they emphasize on different aspects, so you cannot use the viewpoints of, if you are a qualitative researcher, you cannot use your viewpoint to criticize the wrongs in quantitative research just because you are not familiar with them, their language, with their terms. So it's very important. Different paradigms have speak different language. People in different paradigms speak different language. So you cannot use your own standards based on your own paradigm to criticize. You are wrong because you do not follow our standards. It's totally wrong, okay? So let's talk about the two paradigms represented by quantitative research and qualitative research. For quantitative research, let's look at what is their emphasis, what is their values. For quantitative research, the emphasis on the systematic collection of your data, systematic of your data analysis, everyone has to be on the system, structured. They emphasize on this, systematic. So they emphasize on this, then you have to follow the process according to the book, systematic. And also, quantitative tend to be more scientific in a way. For example, if you have two boxes of mice, one is in the control group, the other one is in the experiment group, you try to see whether the new medicine is useful to cure the so-called liver cancer. So it intentionally induces liver cancer for these two groups of mice. One is controlled, the other one is under the experiment. So you add in the medicine to the experiment group, and you use the placebo analogy to the other control group. So you compare the result to see whether it is effective, right? So this is kind of scientific design. And the other one is positive. Positive. What is positives? Positives means that everything is based on evidence. You don't talk, you don't use reasoning, just give me the evidence. What is the result of your analysis? So they emphasize very much on this. Numbers, evidences, real stuff, science have to be based on system. Large sample, large population. You have to identify the significance level. You have to look at the validity, reliability, and so on. But on the other side, when we are conducting a qualitative research, we do not emphasize too much on this. Instead, we talk about qualitative, we talk about the quality of the interviewees. So when you go to interview some people, some interviewees, you have to describe all the process. You have to review the quality of the interview. Although it is a very small occasion out there, it may have taken about 1 hour to finish the interview. But you have to describe what happened there. You have to review the quality of the interview. And also it may be ethnographic. What is the meaning of ethnographic? Let me see this one. Ethno. The meaning of ethno is ethic, moral. Moral. Okay? The meaning of the word is moral. Or ethics. So you can see what is graphic. The science of describing. The science of describing moral issue. So you see this is cultural related issue, right? So ethnographic. So imagine this. You get into the field, try to identify the ethical practice of this community. So you would use observation, observe what they have done. And you may use interview how they think, right? You can see that it would be very difficult to have a structured approach to set up all the different ways of your data collection. Instead, you would need to get into the field, and you would just encounter people and try to collect some data with observation, with interview, right? Many different ways, because you are describing their moral practice, their ethical practice, 民族治学. So you are trying to describe what they are. So imagine this. Can you have a lot of sample for you to collect? No, of course, you are in the field. It takes time. And also ecological. Ecological means environment. You are putting yourself into the environment. Eco, E-C-O, it means home. And you can imagine this. Ecology, why does that relate to ecology? 生态学. Why? Because in ancient time, your home is your environment. So everything is around you. Let us talk about everything around you. So basically, have you ever manipulated in qualitative research? You do not manipulate, because you are there. You are getting into the environment. You do not create the environment. Is that right? However, in quantitative research, normally we will control. We emphasize on control. So we have 2 boxes of mice there, right? We create the test environment. However, on qualitative research, we do not. We are just there. So all the approach we take is also called naturalistic. Whatever it is, we just take whatever it is. We just get into the field. So have you ever been in the bar and observed the different interaction patterns of female and the male over there? Have you ever tried this before? This is pure qualitative research you can take. You just go there and observe That's a very, very interesting interaction pattern between male and female. They are strangers, but they would interact in a bar. Just go there. See, this kind of research, we are in a naturalistic setting. We do not manipulate at all. We just see what happened there and just what happened there. What it is there to offer us, just there to offer us. So this is the basic paradigm for qualitative research. Okay? And you can see, because they have a different mindsets, different paradigms, so both opposing sides, qualitative research and quantitative research, have developed their own values, terminologies, methods, and techniques to understand social phenomena. Their purpose are used to understand social phenomena, right? But they take different approach. They have different inquiry mode. For example, let's say values. For quantitative research, we emphasize what kind of values. We try to become objective, unbiased. But in qualitative research, we seldom mention these words. Because we know, as a researcher, as a part of the research process, it would be very difficult to say our research, my research is unbiased. It's important. It's not easy to say that. So we seldom mention the word objectivity or unbiased in qualitative research. Okay? And for example, terminology. Normally, we will emphasize, for example, validity and reliability in quantitative research. But in qualitative research, what do we talk about? Do we talk about validity and reliability? Yes, but with different terms. We talk about conformability. We talk about credibility. And there are different terms out there. And methods and techniques to understand social phenomena are also different. Just as I say, in qualitative research, if you want to edit, code, and analyze data, what do you need? You need to have a software package. By name, they are quite different, right? And Vivo or QDR Lite, or you can use many other of data search or hyper research, and there are many different softwares out there. They have a different idea. And also, in quantitative research, their methods are so different, right? You go to interview, you go to observe, you need to have a research instrument. Quantitative and qualitative have different ways of data collection. Okay, so they are very, very different ways. So again, one question back to us. Which one we should ask? Which one is more suitable to our research? Instead of to show off, hey, my way is more sophisticated than yours, so mine is much better than yours. No, that is a wrong assumption here. Okay? For example, if I want to know the average height of the student population here, so what kind of data analysis I need to use? That would be very simple, right? I have collected your heights. So I use a very, very simple arithmetic average to average your score. That's it. I have finished my research. Is that right? Okay. And if I want to know if there is a real significant difference between your height and the height of the sophomore years in the same department, so I need to compare the differences, right? So I need to use t-test. It's a little bit different. So the different ways will come with different purpose, will come with different ways of data analysis. So everything is quite different. So there's nothing to say because my ways of analysis is sophisticated. Needs a lot of years to learn, so mine is better than yours. No, it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong. The only the only question you need to ask, that is whether this one can be used to validly answer your research question. If that is valid, then that is good. Okay? You don't have to fancy stuff up there. It's not quite that. Okay? Any question? So if not, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll focus on the difference between quantitative and qualitative research, and then I will tell you what we're going to do for next week. So let's have a break. Okay, let's identify the differences between these two different paradigms. Quantitative research and qualitative research. Their differences can be viewed from different aspects. For example, the first one, we look at the difference underlying philosophy. What is the philosophy that propels the research? For quantitative research, it's rationalism. It's a rationalism. It says that when we have the evidence, we can persuade others. We can present the things. So people should look at this and agree your results. Rationalism. That human beings achieve knowledge. Why they achieve? Because their capacity to reason. So when we do quantitative research, we are trying to reason with the so-called evidences to support our arguments. So try to reason to others. But what about qualitative research? It's different way. It's kind of empiricism. What is empiricism? Is what happened there. What really happened there, the only knowledge that human beings acquire is from the sensory experience. Your experience. You feel about what you are here. How do you feel about your community? Why do you think why you want to have this cultural activity and so on? So please tell me your experiences. Please share with us your story. So you can see all of the stories, all the experiences that the qualitative researcher want to collect are rather subjective, right? They come out from their own experiences. So qualitative research emphasizes on what people think about themselves, what people experience about their surroundings. But quantitative research, the philosophical foundation emphasizes on the possibility of reasoning. We can reason. So look at my evidences. I have the evidences, I have the arguments, so I can support my argument. So I assume you are at the same level of reason, being reasonable. So we can reason, we can talk about that. But qualitative research talk about how I feel. It's totally different, right? Okay? And the other one is the approach to inquiry. One is structured. The other one is unstructured. When you have a very structured process, a structured design for your research, then all the process will be very rigid. You have to follow A, B, and C. But on the other side, for qualitative research, we will see that the process is rather flexible. It's very flexible. It's open. It's a kind of open methodology. It's kind of, as a researcher, you have to design a lot of ad hoc methods to deal with the scenario you are encountering right now. And for quantitative research, every process, every method is predefined. It's very important. You have to determine in advance what kind of methods you want to use. How can you do this? Because in quantitative research, we assume that the encountering with human being can be minimized to a very insignificant fashion. We don't have to contact with people. We are dealing with numbers, remember? The major target for us to collect data is numbers, not people. Since we are not encountering people, so we can excuse us from the trouble of dealing with the complexities of human nature. But qualitative research is quite different. while dealing with people, right? People are so different. So it would be theoretically and practically very difficult for you to design, to predetermine a way of data collection. It's very difficult. So you have to keep your methods as flexible as possible, okay? And let's talk about the purpose of investigation. Well, first time. Interesting. Okay, how do I come out of this? I cannot repeat the process. It just come out. Okay, why? Okay, maybe next time. Is this? No. Okay, anyway. Okay, let's talk about the main purpose of investigation. The first one for quantitative, of course, is to quantify, to give them numbers. We have a phenomenon, we have a situation, we have some issues, right? So basically, we try to give them numbers, quantify, to count, to calculate. And how about qualitative research? We emphasize on quality, right? So how can you represent the quality of some phenomenon? You need to describe the variation in a phenomenon, situation, etc., etc. You try to describe, okay? So look at here. If I want, my purpose of the study is to measure your height, is to find out the average height of the students here, right? So I collect your height numbers. I analyze the data numbers. I present my result number, right? Okay? On the other side, if I describe, if I follow a qualitative research to understand how you look at your own height, then I need to describe, I need to ask you, how do you think about your height? You are very tall compared to the average college students. How do you think about that? Do you have any problems, difficulties of getting along with other people who are much shorter than you? Look at here. All the issues here we describe, trying to identify the quality of your feeling, right? And now in this qualitative research, we don't give numbers. I don't care about you how high you are, although you are very high. You are very tall, let's say you have 200 centimeters, 2 meters tall. Well, that's very tall, but that is not the main issue here. The main issue here is to describe how you feel about your experience of getting along with other people. How have you tried to mingle into the group of people that you have to stay every day, right? Describe the quality of the feeling, the experiences. Now you have sensed the difference between these two, right? Okay, let's move down to the other slide. This one, we can use how are you going to measure the variables? 变相, how are you going to measure it? For quantitative research, we emphasize on some form of either measurement or try to classify the variable. We measure. So your height, I measure. Try to measure the number, right? And try to divide you into several categories. For example, the taller students, the shorter students, the average height students. So try to give some with the number attached to it. We will say 30% of the students here are higher than the average college students. 20% of them are shorter. And the other 50 are about the average. So every time we divide with numbers. But how about qualitative research? Our measurement is more or less about description. Not really try to measure it. We describe how we have observed and what is the happening or what is the story that the description, that the interviewee want to tell you. So we try to describe. It's kind of different emphasis. For quantitative research, the measurement is about how to measure the numbers. But for qualitative research is to measure the description, to describe. Okay? And the other consideration difference is about the sample size. Quantitative research, by its very meaning, is a much larger, greater sample size. Emphasize on this. There is a greater emphasis on the numbers should be, because you want to collect numbers, right? So the larger the sample, the larger the sample size can produce more reliable results. So we need to have a larger sample size. So if you want to understand the, let's say, the level of agreement of Windsor students to environmental protection, 9,000 students population, then what is the sample size you are looking for? Well, ideally, the larger the better, right? But the larger you have to consider the money you have. So most likely you will take about 500 or to 800 samples, cases out there for you to do survey. You will collect data. Okay, you have to consider. But when we talk about qualitative research, we don't talk about sample size because it is by nature we have a fewer cases. So we don't talk about, oh, my sample size, I have only 5. No, you don't say that. Why? Because it is the nature of qualitative research. Qualitative. The only responsibility for you is to explain why you want to use the 5 cases, why they are significant in this case, why they can be used for you to understand the phenomenon for your readers. Why? You have to explain that. You don't have to apologize for one thing. Oh, I'm sorry, I have only 4 cases or 5 cases here. No, in qualitative research, we don't say this. If your reader criticizes that, hey, in your qualitative research, why do you have only 5 people for the interviewees? He missed the point. Instead of this, he should ask, hey, in your qualitative research, why do you take this 5 as your case? That is a legit question. But if he criticizes on the size of your sample, it's wrong. He missed the point and he is not qualified to read your papers. Okay? So it's very important. You have to ask the right question. Right question. So a lot of time, oftentimes, my students will come to ask me, Daniel, how many interviewees I need to have? How many I need to have? I would always give them some criteria for them to consider. First, how much time you have during the summertime you can use to interview, because you would collect your data during the summertime, right? Between the 3rd and the 4th year. So how much time you have? 2 months or 3 months, okay? How much time you need to arrange for one interviewee? Well, maybe 2 or 3 days, right? Or maybe 1 week, starting from the contact and finalize the details of the meeting and a lot of issue consent form and really meet the interviewee. So about 1 week, right? So let's say, so if you consider your time and the length of the period you can use to interview, 2 months, maybe in your case, 10 or 12, 15, that'd be good enough, right? Okay, if you say, no, I just want to interview 5, I will not criticize saying that, oh, 5 is too small, may not be justifiable. Instead, I will ask, why you insisting upon these 5? Are they really qualified for this interview? Are they the real shareholder, stakeholder of this issue? I have to ask that. Because you want to interview. You say you only interview 5, right? Instead of 15 or 10, I advise you to take. Then you have to explain why they are significant in this issue. You cannot just go on the street to interview 5 professors and to understand understand the expert's opinion toward the wind industries in Taiwan. You can, hey, I have interviewed 5 professors. Since they are professors, say they should be good enough to answer our concerns about our energy policy, right? No, they are not the practitioners. They have no idea about the wind industry. So if you come to interview me about wind industry, yeah, I can say something, but I'm not expert at all. So the quality of the data collection is more important than the number of the data, more in qualitative research. So you have to be very careful about this, okay? So this is the same issue for sample size. Any question? Okay, if not, let's move to the next one. Next one is focus of inquiry. What do we focus upon? Well, basically, for quantitative research, our focus is rather narrowed down. Sometimes you will find out it is very interesting, right? We dispatch thousands of 1,000 or so questionnaires to the selected population. And they come back. And in those questionnaires, normally, if you read newspaper, you will always find out the question asking for the respondents, normally you have only 2 or 3 or 4, very in a small number, right? So we have a larger sample, but our questions are comparatively smaller size. We have only few questions out there. So we have a very we narrows down our focus. We do not try to have a deeper understanding of the phenomenon. Because we want to collect our respondents from a larger number of respondents, large number, smaller size of the questions, right? So it's just opposite to the inquiry for qualitative research. Qualitative research, we have a smaller size of the sample, right? But we have a deeper understanding, broader issues that we can use to understand the nature of the research we want to understand. So here, look here. For qualitative research, we will cover multiple issues. Throughout the interview, we can ask a lot of questions. We can talk, we can chat, we can exchange business card. We can enjoy our coffee. In the meantime, I listen to your experience, right? So you can have a deeper understanding, but it takes time, right? That's why in qualitative research, normally, we do not have too many respondents. We have only fewer respondents. We want to have a deeper understanding about their experiences. So we will take time to interview, to observe, to engage in the field, to understand all the details we try to describe. So you can see the two paradigms so far are so different, right? So as a researcher, if you are reading a qualitative research, paper, you have to look at that, well, whether the description of the sample are full of quality or not, right? And then if you are reading a quantitative research paper, then you will be looking at whether the selection of the sample is randomly from the population. If it is not, why? And what about the representation of the sample to the population? Because overall, we want to identify the population, right? Not just the sample in quantitative research. So they are different. So it all depends on what kind of paper you are reading. But remember, you need to ask correct questions and proper questions. Okay, so this is focus and inquiry. The last slide representing the differences. Dominant research value. Quantitative emphasize on reliability and objectivity. That's why we call it, when we say objectivity, is value-free, right? Why do we claim that we try to pursue objectivity especially in quantitative research? Because in our design, we have tried all the possible means to exclude the influences of human beings. We do not contact with human beings. We only look at the numbers, right? Numbers are not equivalent to human beings. So, although we have to collect data from, for example, if we conduct a survey research, we collect data, we dispatch questionnaire to the respondents, and we collect then the questionnaire back from those respondents. But the media here is the questionnaire, but not the human being. I don't have to tell you how you are going to answer the questions, right? I don't have to exchange business cards with you. I don't have to sit with you to have our coffee and our cheesecake. We don't. The only thing I need to do is give you the paper, you give it back to me. That's it. So the human interference is minimized. Is minimized in a very, very significant way. So we don't have to care about the influences of human factor. So we can try to become objective as much as possible. But how about qualitative? Qualitative research, we don't talk about objectivity. Why? Because it's impossible. We are human beings. How can we become objective? And we interpret with our own value systems about the findings, the meaning of the finding. How can we do that? Of course, we cannot. So, in qualitative research, don't be so naive and to claim that we are pursuing objectivity. No. Qualitative research, don't talk about this word. It's a forbidden. No, we don't. Because we cannot. Since we cannot, so we don't talk about objectivity. Instead, we talk about authenticity. This is the real experience. This is the real scenario I have encountered. It is true. It is authentic. I just try to describe what it is. Authentic. It's real. It's there. It's replicable. It can be repeated by yourself. If you go into the same field, you would encounter the same thing. Authentic. So that's why we emphasize our authenticity. It's real. It's true. Over there. It's very important because we talk about the quality of the subject, right? So authenticity is very important. And also, we do not claim that our research is value-free. The reason is very straightforward. We, researchers, are part of the research process, right? There are a lot of interactions out there with the respondents. We are there. We will contaminate the environment setting. We will contaminate the pattern of interactions between the interviewees. So we are there all the time to exercise a lot of influences into the research. So how can we remain value-free? No way, right? Since there is no way for us to do this, so we do not say we are very free in qualitative research. Okay, so don't use the wrong words here. So in qualitative research, we pursue authenticity. We pursue the right explanation. We try to explain what it is really is. But in quantitative research, we emphasize on we need to become objective. We need to provide explanation that without any values attached on it. We emphasize on this, okay? And the other one is research topic, dominant research topic. What kind of topic can be used? What kind of topic are suitable for using quantitative or qualitative research? Well, if we want to explain prevalence, which one is more popular? Okay, then we need to have numbers, right? And what are the occurrence of some incidences? Numbers. What extent, how many students here prefer to stay here over after school for not 3 hours class? And how many of them refuse this kind of? So what is the stand? What is the nature of issue? And so on and so on. These are the issues whenever it relates to the counting of numbers. Can be used to identify. Can be used to, we can use quantitative research to identify those numbers. But instead of numbers, if we are trying to describe what? Anything, any topic needs to be used to describe the experiences, meanings, perceptions, and feelings. Then qualitative research are very, very suitable for this sort of topics. But one very simple difference between the two sets of wording here, look here. Experiences, meanings, perceptions, and feelings. What do they talk about? They can only come out from an individual, right? And the individual's heart, their own experience, and their own understanding of the scenario, their own perceptions towards some certain issues, their own feelings. So basically, we try to understand deeply inside a human being's heart. And this is from inside out. But how about this one? It's kind of happenings out there, right? Happenings out there, so we can find out what are the patterns, what are the preferences, what are the opinions, they are all expressing out, and so that we can count down the numbers. That's it. So you have to look at your own research topic. Which one is better? If you want to describe the feeling, the experience of some specific issue, specific community, or specific people, then qualitative research may fit, right? If you want to count down the numbers of different phenomena, then quantitative research. The other one, analysis of data. Well, we analyze data. Quantitative research, of course, you have to provide frequency, distribution, cross-tabulation, or other statistical procedures. All of this is the manipulation of the numbers. You try to present. Statistic basically has two kinds. One is descriptive statistic. Descriptive statistic refers to 叙述统计. You just try to describe it. Describe the frequency, the happening, the mode, and the average, and the number, just describe. The other one is inferential statistic, 推论统计. You use the numbers to infer to another, try to estimate other scenario by using this. So when you conduct inferential statistics, you need to know the different statistical procedures, such as t-test, chi-square test, f-score, or z-score, standard deviation, variance, logical analysis, or discriminant analysis, factor analysis, or cluster analysis. You have to know this, depending on what kind of purpose you want to do. But don't worry, although there are so many terms here, right? But it's just like I said, like using the word. Really, I'm not kidding, just like using the word program. You just use it. You do not need to compile the codes, right? You don't, you just use it. But the only thing you need to learn is which button delivers what kind of results. That's it. Very simple. Which button delivers to what kind of results? You need to learn this. That's it. Not too much. Just like Word. Which button delivers what kind of results, right? Okay. But how about qualitative data? It's very, very different. And you can see a lot of narratives, storytelling. You are going to describe the observation data. You try to come up with the things. What are the major focus that these stories want to tell you? And also eventually you want to describe it. Describe what happened. So description. Everything is described in qualitative research. So you can see from these differences, what do you need to write in qualitative research? You need to write a lot of description. You need to describe what happened to you for your first contact with the interviewee. What happened to you? What have happened throughout the process of your interview? And what happened, if any, that after your interview, have you encountered any trouble that the interview contact you again to say, okay, I have some more thing to add in? Or she just simply contact you, say, I'm sorry, my husband did not allow me to, so I would like to take it back. You have to describe all of this. Description. Very, very important, right? Okay, the last part is communication of findings. Eventually, you have a research. You have to report your findings, right? So you have to communicate your findings to the general public. For the quantitative research, basically, there are a lot of analytical communication. You draw inferences and the conclusions, and testing magnitude and strength of the relation. You always test. Try to find out whether there is a significant relationship between this set of data and the other set of data. Another test, hypothesis testing. So you tell your readers, for example, if my research here, very simple one, is the different height between male and female students in this classroom is equal or not, if I want to test the hypothesis, right? So eventually I need to use t-test to see whether the average height, let's say 175, and the female's height is 165, whether these two sets of numbers are real different in statistical analysis. I cannot just say 175 is different with 165. That is too simple. I have to test. I need to provide a test. So eventually I will tell you the difference 175 and 165. If they are really want to be equal, the possibility of becoming equal is only 1 out of 1 billion. So maybe they really can become equal, but the possibility is 1 out of 1 billion. So are they significantly different? Yes, they are significantly different. Now I'm using the terms for quantitative analysis, right? But that is not difficult. As far as you have learned and you know is a way to describe your findings. Very simple, right? Okay, and how about this? For qualitative research, in your structure, in your paper, most of them are descriptive and narrative. Descriptive to describe, narrative to tell a story. So you describe and tell a story, that's it. So qualitative research is very interesting in some way. That is, you have a bunch of data in front of you. After you add it, code it, then you analyze it. The way of you analyzing qualitative research, more likely is just try to describe the patterns and try to retell the stories of the data want to reveal to its readers. So you are telling a story. So to some extent, a qualitative researcher is a storyteller. A short story. But there are some good storytellers, right? And there are some bad storytellers. There are some boring storytellers. So you can imagine that when you write your qualitative research, there are many ways to tell the stories of the data. So your writing skills are required. And to some extent, your artistic talents of telling story is also required. Because there are many different ways of telling a story, right? Everyone can be different in some way. Okay, so these are the general differences between qualitative research and quantitative research. So far, you should have some understanding at least. They are quite different. They are in different paradigms. So never judge a research coming from the opposite paradigm with your own understanding about your own paradigm. They are different. They have different emphasis. They have different emphasis, right? So when you conduct in a qualitative research, don't be so stupid to say, hey, my research is objective. Don't say that, because they don't talk. They don't talk about this word. Forbidden, right? Okay, so you have to be very careful. If you claim you are conducting a quantitative research, and you say, my sample size is very huge with 20 students in mind. 20 students? Quantitative research? A survey? What kind of research you are doing, right? You have missed the point. So there are many differences over there, and they are important. Why they are important? Because you follow different paradigms. Your emphasis will be completely different. You will be different, okay? And also, because you have learned these differences, you will start to appreciate. You will start to appreciate the story told by qualitative research and the analysis done by the quantitative research. You will start to appreciate why they want to talk about a significant difference. There must be something out there, right? Okay, so it's important for you to know these differences. Okay, any question? If not, let's talk about the 8-step process, and we will go through the process throughout the whole semester. Basically, they can be divided into 3 parts. Deciding what you want to do. And once you have decided, then you can plan how to do. After you have your plan, you have proposals, then you can actually do according to your plan. So you can see, deciding what is the first step. This is very important. We will spend 3 or 4 weeks to talk about how to formulate a research problem, right? And once you know you have a very solid research problem, then you will move on to do the other 4 things. One is a research design, this one, research design. The other one is the instrument, research instrument. This one is research instrument here, instrument. Research instrument is for you to collect data. Then once you have a research instrument, the next step for you is to select a sample. Oops. Selecting a sample. Okay, you need to select a sample. Once you have, see, this is the design. Research design is to help you to identify what kind of tool I need, what kind of data I need to collect. Okay? And the research tool is for you to collect data. So you need to construct the tool. So now you have a research design, you have a tool, then you need to have some sample for you to collect data, right? So you select data. So these are the general process you have done. Then the next one is to write a research proposal. The 5th step. So all the process here refers to plan how to conduct your research. So ends here, a research proposal. So now you are going to really get into the field to collect your data, right? To process your data, and eventually to write a research report for yourself. So this is the last part for you to actually do your research. So we have 3 major components here. 1, identify the research questions, research problem, first step. Once you have a research problem, then you go to identify a research design, research instrument, sample, and then a research proposal. Okay, you have a blueprint research proposal. So you are getting into the field and do it, right? So you will collect data. You are processing the data, including editing, coding, and analyzing. And then, once you have an analysis of your data, you need to write it out so that you can communicate it with the general public. So you will write a research report. Of course, there are a lot of considerations out here. We will explain that when we have lessons, corresponding lessons in the next few weeks. Okay? So this is very important for you to follow this one. And now let's move to the last slide. As a reminder, I want you to prepare for quiz 1. Quiz 1 is what we have talked about for today. Okay? I need you to preview reading 2. Okay, reading 2 is the next few pages. I think reading 2, great, reading 2. Read it before you come here. That will be much easier for you to catch up the progress. Okay? And quiz 1 will be delivered right on spot at 9:10. So you have to be here on time. And there's no makeup quiz for this one. If you miss, then you miss. Any question? If not, thank you for coming. And thank you for listening. I will end the broadcasting show for today. Okay, see you next time. Bye.